Okay, now I'll call this meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Engineering Equipment Committee of the Vallecitos Water District for Monday, October 11th, 2021 at 3 p.m. via teleconference. Since there's no public, I'm going to dispense with a reading of the notice to the public. And with that, I'll turn over the items for discussion to you, James.
Great. Thank you, Director Eltharp. So our first item is the development construction agreement review. As you may recall, this is an item that you brought up mainly about the continued liability in the language. It was in section 24. We went ahead and shared this with obviously the legal team, which Council Gilpin joined us at the last meeting. And they give us quite a review comments. Most of the comments were really just fixing things, updating with the new laws, some language changes. But there's a few items that change with some significance. I'm going to hand it over to Elizabeth to go over the main change that you requested, but we can go back and forth if there's any question. I believe, actually, I know it was also in your packet, starting on page 3 probably. And that's so you could see all the track changes for the agreement. Elizabeth, why don't you go ahead and share the go ahead and share the track changes.
Okay. Can you see my screen with the agreement?
Yes, I can.
Uh-huh.
So as James mentioned, last month we discussed section 24. Some of the changes made by the attorneys were formatting, so the numbering has changed. So last time it was section 24. Now it is numbered section 21. But essentially what was clarified is the length of time that the developer is responsible for liability after the district accepts work. And that was clarified to the fullest extent permitted by California law, which currently is 10 years. So we're hoping that provides clarification that the time frame is not in perpetuity.
And Director Arthur, the only other real major change was in the prevailing wage section. I forgot what section that is, but basically the main thing is just updating with the new statutes. Since the agreement was originally marked, the prevailing wage and the labor laws has changed a little bit. So really what I saw BBK do is really updated and basically calling out the current labor codes and the requirements. Everything else was really, as mentioned by us, more just wordsmithing and cleaning up the document.
Yeah, I noticed that the prevailing wage was, I think, section 16. I did see that. And I guess just an overall comment, I'm glad to see that BB&K looked at the whole thing because I think it was past due for a cleanup. So I appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So unless there's any other direction, we don't actually have to take this item to the board. We could accept it with BBK's comments and then basically start implementing it on future developer agreements as our new standard.
Great. Sounds good to me.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Before we go, just I didn't read the whole document, but at our workshop the other day, this term workship came up. You know, the politically correct, not for me, but I don't know if that's in here anywhere where there's workmanship or craftsmanship. I think we should, if it is, we need to address it. I don't want to change it. I'm going to mention that tomorrow or Wednesday at our if it comes up, I'm going to mention it at the workshop. We don't need to be creating new words just to satisfy the political correctness world.
So and correct me if I'm wrong, Elizabeth, but I don't believe so. So when you look at the latent and patent laws that carry out for the 10-year liability portion of it, the way we used to describe those laws were either faulty workmanship or materials or something done basically if you could prove something was done on purpose or done not in a normal workmanlike manner that create an issue. So instead of saying that term, now it just calls out the California law, the code. So we're not actually using that term at all. in it. So I think we've avoided any of that stuff, at least in the document. And Elizabeth, is there anywhere else that it would be, or it's just mainly in that old section 24?
Yeah, I'm not seeing it anywhere else.
So
Okay, good.
it also wasn't in the old document either. So.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, that was a new, I learned something the other day. I'd never heard of workship. They had misspelled it or
Well,
as work,
yeah,
as
John thought it
workshop.
was
And so I
workshop.
raised,
Yeah, no,
yeah, so I raised the
And-
question, what did that mean? And it was,
right. And then when I
and they
went,
said it was supposed to be workship, and I'd never heard of that word either.
Yeah.
I
So-
checked my Webster's, there is no such a word.
Yeah, I didn't
So-
think there was, but I mean, if we need to use it, we need to use it, but I'm not. in
Well, I'm not gonna,
favor-
I'm gonna disagree to use it, so
Okay,
be prepared for that.
Well,
All right.
I don't have workship in my lexicon at this moment. So
Right.
unless I'm told to add it somewhere, I'll wait for direction.
Yeah,
okay,
good.
And
All
here-
right.
as we all.
And here under warranty, the terminology is listed workmanship.
Okay,
So,
then we can leave it.
Okay.
All
we'll
right.
leave it. We'll leave it unless otherwise directed.
Yeah, unless it comes up and then, so off we go.
Great. Thank you. Then we'll move on to the next item if the directors are ready.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. So next item is the Tesla battery storage system. I believe Director Elthorpe or Maven Hernandez, you guys asked at a previous, maybe it was a board meeting on just an update. It may have been a committee meeting. I don't recall. The good news is the timing was perfect. When the question was being asked, we were actually working on getting the final schedules. And the question wasn't asked specifically about Tesla, but I believe it coming out of either one of the Aqua or CSDA conferences with some of the energy consultants talking about what your agency is doing about battery storage and some of the incentives out there. So there may be more than this out there available, but today Susan's here, who is basically in charge of our battery storage program that we have going on. This is the program that the district got on board prior to December of 2020 to get basically all the batteries and the engineering for free. Obviously, we have staff time incurred, but as far as the cost of the actual battery, the maintenance for 10 years, and the engineering to get the batteries installed, there's no cost to a district or its ratepayers. With that, let me hand it over to Susan. I think Susan may have a brief presentation for us.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Good afternoon, directors. Yes, I wanted to give you a quick update on the Tesla project. Are you seeing my slideshow?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep.
We did come before you back in January, actually on January 11th. So it's exactly 10 months ago, to let you know that we were beginning to work with Tesla and the California Public Utilities Commission on this effort. And we are now getting closer to the finish line. So it's pretty exciting. The sites that we've selected and the project is going to really bring a lot of benefits to the district. So real quickly, the project is a ratepayer, electric utility ratepayer funded project. So for us, we are getting funding through SDG&E. And it's about a way for the California Public Utilities Commission to promote self-generation. And primarily right now, the purpose of that is for resiliency should there be public safety power shutoffs. So we were approached, or we had approached the Public Utilities Commission for this grant, if you will. And because we are qualified for it because of the services that we provide. So what we will be implementing with Tesla's assistance are these battery, BESS, battery energy storage systems. They are self-contained units, either a power pack or a mega pack. They may contain up to 16 battery pods, and they're pretty well just installed as the cabinets on a foundation and plugged into our system to provide this resiliency. The criteria that allowed us to qualify for this is that we are in a high fire threat district. which is certainly the case. We are a critical facility, so we provide water services, and that we have communities that are designated as disadvantaged per the census tract. When we went through with Tesla to identify our different locations that would be eligible for this, initially they looked at 8 locations. 2 of them were not viable, but we have gone through the full process now and arrived at 6 locations that we will be implementing these batteries. Again, these batteries are intended for resiliency, but we can also use them for peak shaving, just to assist us with any electric needs that we may have. Some of our locations do have generators, but they'll work in conjunction with the generators, as well as with the solar that we have, this photovoltaic systems that we have at our different locations. So the 6 locations are the Twin Oaks area that, as you know, we just recently put in the photovoltaic system. Palace Vista Pump Station, here at headquarters, the Meadowlark facility, Double Peak Pump Station, and San Alejo Hills Pump Station. So these 6 stations, 5 of them are getting the power pack. This is the different slide. Okay. And actually only one of them is getting Mega Pack, which is the Meadowlark facility. So the total value of the batteries to be donated to VWD is $6.7 million. As James mentioned, all engineering, design, installation, operation, and maintenance costs are covered by this program for the duration of the 10-year project. Tesla is going to be the company who will continue to perform the maintenance during that project. The 10-year energy cost savings that we could possibly obtain through managing the rates and when we utilize the power is up to 1.6 million. And these batteries do have an estimated useful life of 20 years. So we will take over the maintenance of them after 10 years, but we can expect to get 20 years of service out of them. As we said, after that 10-year period, Tesla will no longer be responsible for the maintenance. However, we could, if we wish to, we could recycle the batteries at no charge. And basically give the units back to Tesla. We could sell the batteries to a third party, or we could decide to contract with Tesla for extended maintenance. And we will determine that in 10 years when we get there. So the process that we've gone through, the district has gone back and forth with Tesla to determine the exact placement of the batteries at the different locations. They've worked with us to modify the configuration of the batteries so that they fit into the limited footprint. Particularly, a lot of our station sites have very limited footprint to put these batteries in. And they were very helpful to try to come up with solutions for these 6 locations. We are still finalizing a couple of placements at Meadowlark and at one of the pump stations. But I really want to thank Tesla. They've done a great job helping us with that. The process now has moved into where we are reviewing the plans. The systems are fully designed by Tesla. They're pretty much a standard design that they follow for these. In fact, I think some of these battery systems may have been put in over by Best Buy, if I'm not mistaken, and other locations around Californare. But VWD Engineering Department, along with O&M, has been reviewing all the plans. The civil and structural plans are reviewed and signed off by the district. And the electrical aspects of it are going to our as-needed electrical engineering firm, Moraes Fam, to make sure that they meet all the requirements and are protecting the district facilities as well. So here's just a quick look at the installation dates for the 6 locations and just a summary of the battery sizes, the duration that we anticipate the fully charged batteries, how long they will last. So you can see some of these are a long time that they may last for supporting our facilities if there's power shutoffs. And again, the cost battery value that we're being given. So right here, you can see we're about to embark next week, actually, on headquarters and Double Peak, although I think that might be changing slightly. But these are the dates laid out to start the groundbreaking for the foundation work, et cetera, at these different locations. The full installation takes about 3 months to get these in place. And
oh, sorry.
Yep.
Susan, I have a question on that last slide you had up. So the battery output rating in kW is the load rating. So I don't understand the battery size in kWh. That's typically a consumption figure.
right.
I'm confused as to what the difference between the two numbers.
So I think what it is this, we're getting 1,392 kilowatt hour size battery, but the max they could put out is 280 kilowatts at a time. So
Right. That would be the instantaneous load
Yeah.
capacity.
instantaneous load capacity. So in other
So
words,
maybe
like at Meadowlark, it's going to be an issue. Like we'll have to, because our generator, because Meadowlark has a large peaking capacity. Like if Meadowlark were to go down, everything turns back on. That's why our generator is so big out there. So we'll have to change the sequencing of how we bring on the equipment to load it. And I think that's something that we're still working on at Meadowlark. I mean, that's the only one that I know of. The other ones may all be taken care of already.
So typically what percentage of the total load can these handle? I mean, it's probably a fraction of the sites.
Well, it depends, right? So for Twin Oaks, for example, it could probably handle everything. And Palos Vista could probably handle most of it when we run it under normal. If there's a big fire and we have to turn on multiple pumps, then we'll have to change the sequencing and timing. And we could do that in SCADA by slowing down when after pump 1 turns on, ramping up pump 2 at a slower rate if it's a VFD. We'll have to, so there'll be some work on our ops side to figure out how to live within those loads. But most of the sites have a standby generator, and the way it's being utilized now is the standby generator will turn on and handle the load, and then will turn off and transfer it back over to the battery. So that's probably what we're going to end up doing at Meadowlark. We were hoping to go battery first and then generator, because of the limits on the instantaneous peak output that the batteries can do. It may not be realistic for some of the sites. So.
Yeah, you also have a limit on the emergency generators. I think like a 200-hour annual limit.
Yeah, it's as you're well aware of, it used to be 52 hours for testing. Now it's 26 hours for testing per year. And then there's a limit based on emergencies too. Mm-hmm. However, in this case, the batteries would be turning on, the generators would be turning on for minutes, maybe 20, 30 minutes, I don't know. And then the batteries will end up taking over for the most part. So at least that's the design intent. I can't speak from personal experience to let you know that it works that way, but that's what we've been told.
Maybe that's some of the things you'll have to work out operationally.
Yeah, I'm sure. And Ed and I have been talking. I'm sure we're going to get these, and they're not going to work exactly as advertised, but we'll still have to figure out how to make them work, at least as intended.
Yeah, I attended the last Aqua Energy Committee, and there was quite a bit of urgency on the self-generation incentive program. I guess the top tier of incentives has already been used up, and they're kind of into the second tier, and I think there was like 18 million left. So they said it was going fast. So I'm glad we took advantage of it through this program with Tesla.
Yeah, and then just to be clear, so we got all of our application ins prior to December 31st of 2020, which put us in the top tier. And then my understanding is, and I could be wrong about this, but this is what I was told by maybe Terra Verde, our energy consultant, is once they looked at every single one of our sites, and picked all the sites that were eligible to move forward. And then we've had to refine those as we move forward. Once you're in the top tier, then you don't really even qualify for the second tier money. And there's no reason to, because it's the same criteria for picking the sites.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad the staff was proactive.
So yeah, it's maybe a little bit of dumb luck on our part too, but I'm glad we answered the phone and made the calls when we did.
Good. Director Hernandez, any question?
Nope, better be lucky than good.
Well,
Thanks.
how's this?
Thanks, Susan.
I was lucky. Susan's good.
Yeah.
There we go.
Good.
Great
There we go.
combination.
It's a
Great
perfect team.
combination.
Yeah.
Well said, James. Well said.
Thank you. And unless there's any other items, we can move on to the next items when the directors are ready.
Yep.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay, the next item, the Land Alpha West Condition Assessment Update. This will be actually a combination of Susan and Ari. I believe Ari is our consultant that worked on it and is online with us. Ari, would you like to introduce yourself really quick?
Hi, good afternoon, directors. Good afternoon, James and team. My name is Ari Eldon. I'm a principal with Hoke Consulting based here in San Diego. And I served as the project manager for the Land Outfall West Condition Assessment Project.
So Susan will be starting off the presentation, and I believe she'll be teaming with Ari for this presentation. So Susan, when you're ready.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, we're excited to come back to you and give you an update on this project that's just about at the finish line. And interestingly enough, we were in front of you on January 11th, 21 with this project. So all I did was just change the dates on the presentation and I was done. So not quite, but anyhow. And yes, I'm pleased to have Ari with me. We really collaborated well. Hope did a fabulous job on this project. And I think as you see, as we go through this presentation, you'll see where we had challenges and we met those. And going forward, we'll have a bit of work to do, but it's good to know what's going on inside this pipeline. Apologize up front for the wordiness of this slide. Tried to fit a lot of info in it. Basically, just a quick refresher. This is a 34,000 foot long sewer pipeline that goes from lift station number 1, all the way, takes all of our wastewater from the district down to the Encina Water Pollution Control Facility, and also collects a significant, if not all, of City of Carlsbad's wastewater into Encina as well. And the City of Vista Buena Sanitation District also has some ownership of this pipeline for emergency basis for their needs. This condition assessment project that we brought to you back like right at the end of 2020 was to cover little over 3 1/3 miles of the land outfall on that western portion. We hadn't had a look inside this pipeline since the mid 2000s. And it was critical that we get in there and take a look at it. The pipeline is primarily vitrified clay with some metallic pipe and Hobos pipe, which, as Ari will explain, we learned a bit about some of the materials that were in place. And there are 3 inverted siphons in this alignment as well. So the results of this condition assessment project, as you see, will be used to determine what segments are going to require cleaning, rehab, or replacement. Although I don't know that we found any that needed replacement. We went through a competitive bidding process involving our as-needed contractors that we have available to us. And all 3 pipeline owners, Carlsbad, Vista, and Vallecitos, participated in the selection of Hoke Consulting. The preparation and planning of this project was a lot of coordination. There was multiple agencies, not just the ones I've already mentioned, but we also had to coordinate with Encina and also with the CEQA to get permits for that. We performed site visits, getting those permits, and a lot of right-of-way permits, because a lot of this work was done on Palomar Airport Road. Public outreach also was a critical part of this project. As I mentioned, we went along Palomar Airport Road. Upstream of that, we were right along an apartment complex, literally just, probably 100 feet from the bedrooms of folks. And also even through the Motel 6 right there at I-5. So a lot of coordination. We had done, the district did public presentations and direct outreach by Chris Robbins to the affected parties. And I'm pleased to say that we did not receive any complaints or inquiries about our work that we were doing. The field work was done between June 7th and 24th approximately, and all work was done overnight because of the flow conditions in that pipeline. This is just a little graphic to kind of show you, this is the area that we worked on, and some pictures of the different constraints and issues that we needed to deal with as we and Hoke and their subconsultants went through to do this project. This here gives you a quick reminder about the cost sharing for this particular reach of the pipeline, the land outfall. And this was, as I mentioned, a very collaborative effort with Carlsbad and Vista, and then the subconsultants to Hoke, ProPipe, and Recon, and everybody did a great job on this. So at this point, for the more exciting parts of the presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Ari.
Thank you, Susan. And once again, good afternoon, directors and Assistant General Manager Compel. You'll have to forgive me. I get really excited and passionate about condition assessment, pipelines, technology. So if I'm going too fast or I use too many acronyms or things, please, stop me, ask questions, and we can go through things. I think first off, I want to give a lot of credit to the district, to Susan and the district operations team specifically. This really was a very challenging project, both from a technical standpoint, getting tools safely in and out of the pipeline, collecting all the good data, but then also from a logistics and coordination, like she said, working in such close proximity to residences and businesses, and then of course working together with Carlsbad and getting all those permits. So we did 4 months of planning from an NTP before we mobilized on site. And we produced a document that all the pipeline owners and stakeholders had an opportunity to review, approve, and sign off on. And then we were able to get into the field. And like Susan was saying, we took advantage of working at night, which proved to be really critical from a couple standpoints. One, we completed the work, safely and completely, everything we set out to do. But two is we were able to, minimize the interruptions to the public, especially in Palomar Airport Road. And we were really able to take advantage of the what I'd say the low flow in this pipeline. So we mobilized on site about 11 o'clock at night, and we were done by about 7. And getting the tools safely in and out of the pipeline, you can see in the top left, we had a really robust tractor with adequate lighting, with HD, CCTV, direct communications right up to the truck where we could watch and pan and tilt and zoom and tell them to pause and go back. I want to look at, that defect or what we're seeing. But there was a tremendous amount of flow going through that pipeline. And I think that comes as no shock to the operations team, but I really want to stress that to this group. Even during low flow, there was a substantial amount of flow and velocity going through there. So incredibly, that made it, just from a technical standpoint and from a safety standpoint, really difficult. But credit to the team, especially ProPipe, for working safely, having the right tools and equipment to get the job done. And so you can see there on the upper left, that tractor we talked about, upper right, example of some of the work we did in district easements, which were incredibly well maintained, in good shape. Operations team was really helpful, helping facilitate access, the do's and don'ts, which are the best ways to get in and out. And that was critical, especially working at night. And some of the manholes we did, kind of bottom left there, the manhole wasn't exactly situated and next to the truck. So, lifting the equipment, driving it down there, getting over as close as we could. And there were several locations where, due to environmental constraints, we did not have vehicular access. So that was all part of that inspection planning to know which manholes we could access, which ones we couldn't. and then devise a plan of how to inspect as much, in this case, all of the pipeline as we could, even without accessing several of the manholes. So for the gravity pipelines, we did CCTV that you saw on the previous slide. And for the siphons, this was probably the most challenging part of the project, was how to inspect and accurately assess the condition of the inverted siphons. And for those that aren't familiar, siphons are actually, go in kind of an inverted, U shape, if you will. And those are fully submerged. So you can't put a camera down there. There's nothing to see. And so we used sonar, a specific type of sonar called profiling sonar, deployed on a submersible, submarine type device that you see on the bottom left. But one of the risk mitigation steps that we took was we wanted to secure the sub on both sides. So we inserted what's called a tagline. And for those that aren't familiar, a tagline is a really high strength, effectively Kevlar enforced rope, long range deploy. And you can see in the top right, there we are in the Motel 6 parking lot, laying it out, marking the distance each, at 10-foot increments. So we knew where we were. And then they hook up on the upper left a parachute or a sail type device and lower that in. The flow catches it. And then, so this is at the siphon inlet. And then the flow pulls it through to the siphon outlet, where we had a team with a truck and a winch and a hook. And they basically pull that parachute out, hook it up to a winch on the truck on the downstream end. And then we had it secured at the upstream end to a winch and a cable. And that way we had control, push and pull from both sides. And that was a really important step in the planning to, again, mitigate risk. We do not want equipment getting stuck in the pipeline. And then also, especially for this project, that we had so much flow and velocity going through there. It was really important that we control the speed at which the tool moves. And having that control on both sides, that really helps us collect high quality data, even where it's really turbulent flow, a lot of disturbance. The good news is, I'd say overall, and we communicated with the ProPy team, and I'd send Susan a text message bright and early every morning. We were out in the field, and this is what we found. In essence, the pipelines and the manholes were found to be in decent condition, given their materials of construction, the age, and then 35 years of service in a tough wastewater environment. We'll go through some of the typical structural defects that we saw, as well as some of the O&M related defects. And all of our work was done in accordance with the published industry standard, which is the NASCO Pipeline Assessment Certification Program, as well as the Manhole Assessment Certification. So all of the work, all the findings are defensible or in line with accepted industry standards. And this work was meant to be done as replicable. So what we did is collected baseline condition data that then, as part of your asset management program, you could look at down the line and then go back and say, okay, how are the conditions changing over time? What's going on with our pipeline? Here's a bit of the technology you can see on the left. This is a digital optical manhole scanner. And so you lower it in, it does a rapid 3D scan, collects images the whole way down. And then the output, one of the outputs you see on the right-hand side, this is actually a lay flat image. So if you had, a manhole, a circular manhole, this is folding it out. So you see the entire circumference, 360 degree circumference. You can see the inlet and the outlet pipeline, kind of right down there. And then you see the ladder rungs coming down. You got measurements. It's 22 foot deep. You have clock positions. And then you can do post-processing. And I really like this technology. This is the Panorama technology. And what you can do, what I did right there is you're able to measure one of the defects that we saw. In this case, you got the interior liner failing. So it really helps you accurately quantify what's going on inside your manholes. And then you can provide, more accurate bid documents out to construction contractors to do those types of fixes. So a couple of the findings we wanted to just, share with you. This was one of the more interesting ones. This is actually the most downstream portion of the pipeline. the outlet, and you can see the light at the end of that tunnel on the left side. That's actually the influent junction structure at Encina. So this is the most downstream 90 feet or so. It's reinforced concrete pipe. It had an interior liner. That liner has failed. You can see on the left-hand side, it's delaminating and falling in. On the right-hand side, you can actually see where the aggregate of the concrete, so that interior surface is exposed and now is been roughened. It's subject to H2S gases and corrosion. The good news is we didn't see any reinforcing rebar exposed yet, but we're pretty well on our way there. That's a defective condition that's going to need some attention. And then we did see cracks in numerous locations, and then we saw fractures. Fractures are the ones that really capture the most of our attention. You can see on the left-hand side, we had a couple areas, reach to reach, manhole to manhole, kind of the entire sewer reach, where we saw, that's looking up at the 12 o'clock position, where we saw a longitudinal fracture from basically pipe joint to pipe joint. And then it just kept going pipe stick after pipe stick after pipe stick. So that tells us, something's going on there. It's not an isolated event. This one in particular is down near the Costco shopping center in the district easement. We know through researching the record drawings, it looked like during development, portions of the pipeline were relocated and then portions remained. So there could have been some land disturbance or some type of outside influence that really affected the structural integrity of this pipeline. And then, again, often defects you see in clay pipe, fractures on the right-hand side in the vicinity of a pipe joint. Those types of things, those are structural defects that do require attention. So again, the siphons were definitely the part of this project that kept me up at night, both because we were on site during the siphons, but also just given the complexity, the challenges, the risks. Siphon number 2 was a bear. It's a long siphon. It's 1,600 feet long. You've had a failure there in the past. Kind of in that vicinity of the Miracosta College, where you had basically a catastrophic pipe failure and a big spill. I believe it was in the mid 90s. James, is that kind of what we decided?
Yes, it was in the mid 90s.
Yeah, and subsequent had a repair and had done some rehab work. This is it's confirmed, metallic pipeline in this area, which metallic is really susceptible to H2S gases and corrosion and wall loss and ultimately failure. You can see there's actually a pipe size change. So it changes from 30-inch diameter and it necks down to 24-inch. Anytime we're putting tools and equipment inside a pipeline, we really want to know what the pipe size is so we can adequately size the equipment we're putting in. So that was an area of concern. And this was just a bear of a pipeline to get that tagline inserted. But given the distance, we really felt it was really important. And so ProPipe stuck with it. They were out there 4 nights just trying to get the tagline inserted. So again, credit to them to getting that done and working with the district operations staff. Next slide. So what you can see on the upper left, you see 2, those are sonar images. And what we were able to measure on the left-hand side is see a 30-inch diameter pipe. You can see a bit of settled debris, not that much, it was 1.5 inches, under 2 inches of settled debris, kind of in the vicinity of the low point. And then on the right-hand side, you can see, we were able to measure our device was able to measure, 24 inches. So we were able to confirm that pipe size change. And then because of the way this siphon functions, a portion of the siphon is actually not fully submerged. And it makes perfect sense. That's where the pipeline had failed in the past, because you've got, for those who understand, you've got a transition between gravity flow to full pipe flow. You had bare exposed, metallic pipe. That's where you got a lot of H2S, a lot of turbulence. So part of the record drawings and the data that the district had turned over as part of the inspection planning stated that there was a cured in place pipeliner put in. We did confirm that via the CCTV inspections. And then we went a step further. We actually contacted the installer, the material manufacturer and the installer in situ form to try to get some more data from them of what liner did you install? What were the lengths? How much? How did it go? And basically all they were able to do, because of the time that's passed, 23 years or so, was say, hey, we have records that we installed liner in 1998. So a good news that the liner's there. It was observed to be in fairly good condition. You see some wrinkles and fins, but that's all typical stuff you see with CIPP, especially back in the late 90s. This should come as probably no surprise. We found a lot of debris. It was on our tractors every time we pulled them out. It was on the sonar subs. So we had a lot of ragging, debris, especially a lot of grease down at the downstream end. That's just kind of a general finding. And then you'll see where all that's accumulating, which is our next slide. And this is probably one of the more interesting findings. So this is the siphon pipeline that crosses underneath I-5. When we talk about this project, I mean, to me, that was the highest risk portion of this assessment. So we really did a lot of due diligence. The Motel 6, is there on the right-hand side, and Encina down on the left-hand side. So we set up, and Susan, the team, we were all out there at the Motel 6, carefully coordinated with them, and deployed the sonar unit from there, traveled downstream. And even the sonar operators are like, we're seeing something kind of unique. If you go to the next slide, I said, what is this pipeline a flat bottom pipeline? Like, that would be really uncommon. I'm pretty sure it's a circular pipe. The image on the right-hand side, we were able to do a little bit of CCTV before it went fully submerged. And we were able to see, in fact, hey, pause, stop, hang on. That's a Hobos pipe signature right there on the interior of the pipe. We know that that's, Hobos pipe. And then, I know from my experience with them, they do make flat bottom pipe, but it's really difficult to get. It's only overseas. So even more likely that it is circular. And what we later found, and they were able to take measurements, that's actually settled debris. And you've got a substantial amount of settled debris in this siphon going underneath I-5, coming up towards Encina. We measured it to be, almost 1,200 or over 1,200 cubic feet of debris. And I think talking to some of district staff who were around, James, you're raising your hand. I think that to folks who were around when this siphon was relined, when that Hobos pipe was installed via slip lining in 2003, it was a huge effort to remove all the settled debris out of the existing 54-inch line. And so I think this finding now comes as probably no big surprise. And, without getting into too much of the details, we actually did reach out to the installation contractor, JR Pipeline out of LA, and they still had staff who remember specifically, oh my goodness, that required a tremendous amount of cleaning, mechanical means, dragging stuff out. And the folks at Encina remember that was a huge effort. So anyway, that's kind of the large takeaway is, yes, we've got settled debris that's going to need to be cleaned, and a fairly substantial amount, 16 inches of depth in a 48-inch diameter pipe.
And if there's a question from the board why that is that pipe, when it was installed in the mid 80s, that pipe, the 54-inch, was put in either perfectly flat or slightly uphill, over that the crossing underneath the 5 freeway. So when it was slip lined back in, I can't remember, 2003, 2002, 2004, whenever it was, we couldn't do anything with the grade changes. They tried to put a little bit to give it a little bit of slope, but you had to meet the flow lines. So you're kind of stuck. You had 2 fixed points that you're stuck on. So at the end of the day, it's a perfectly flat pipe. And what happens in a perfectly flat pipe is you don't have velocity and you get settling out. And this is one of those items that probably need to get on a regular routine maintenance to ensure that we don't get 16 inches and 1,200 cubic feet of debris that we have to coordinate. Because if we pushed all that out to Encina, for our board members at Encina, we'd end up breaking their headworks. So
yeah, we don't want to do that.
No. So thank you, Ari. That was very helpful. And thank you for showing all the work that we did and what our findings are. So as you see, we have recommendations, and this contract with Hope Consulting was to do the assessment and then to provide the recommendations. So certainly we have some structural repair renewal to do. We need to do some pipeline siphon cleaning. We need to monitor some of the cracks, maybe do some structural spot repairs and renewal of the fracture area. And then there's, again, some monitoring of roots and other spot repair for infiltration. So there's, Hoke has actually put together, it's not in this presentation, but they've put together a spreadsheet with all of the reach by reach, meaning manhole to manhole, findings, recommendations, status, material validation, et cetera, for us. That report has been provided to us and to Vista and to Carlsbad, and we're currently reviewing it. It's not yet finalized, but that will give us the recommendations of the work that needs to be done. So that does bring us to what the next steps are for this land outfall west. We need to assess those findings and review the prioritized recommendation with these pipeline co-owners, provide any feedback to Hoke on the report, et cetera. With those recommendations, we'll want to determine the maintenance activities that the district can perform. There's some things that need to be done, the manhole lining, some different things like that the district will identify work that can be done internally. And then going forward, we're going to need to produce a bid package and advertise out for contractor support on the structural repair renewal and most likely on the siphon cleaning. So those are the next steps for maintaining the pipeline. And with that, I'll open it up for any additional questions for myself, for Ari, for James.
Okay, thanks, Susan. That was Susan and Ari both. That was a great presentation. Lots of great information.
Yes, lots.
What when I used to supervise pipeline camera inspection back in the late 80s, we didn't have a lot of this technology. And in fact, what Ari was talking about, getting a camera stuck, I had that happen, and that wasn't a very fun process getting that removed. So I kind of feel your anxiousness and pain when those kind of possibilities pop up. But I had a question on that reach down there in Cena, that last 90 or 100 feet that had exposed aggregate. What would, that liner has failed there. What would be the proposed fix there? Would that be like an epoxy coating or a different kind of liner or cured in place maybe?
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that because that's inside Encina's fence line, but yet
Okay.
it's still our responsibility. So we're gonna have to team with Encina because they're gonna have a say in what they prefer. And obviously, digging it up and replacing it and bypassing it would be the easiest, but we may not be able to. Lining it would be difficult because I don't know if there's an opportunity for us to bypass around it. There may be with the manhole. So can you go back to maybe the other figure that showed the tunnel underneath the 5 and showed kind of the manhole locations at the end? Sorry, I know you're bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point, James. Yeah, go for it. Oh, that one.
Go back
That
one
was
more.
it,
There.
yeah.
Yep.
There we
Right
go.
There you go.
Yep. So we'll have to coordinate with that. If we could bypass around it and get kind of the permission to dig in, put in a new pipe that's inert, a plastic-based pipe, that would be probably the best long-term solution. But without knowing the constraints at Encina, we really can't answer that. Obviously, even lining it would require bypassing because that pipe never stops flowing.
Right.
And part
James,
of the, sorry, go ahead.
one of the things that jumped out to me when we were there is, just the bypassing to do any of the interior work on this line. The bypassing, I think, is going to be one of the huge challenges. And we saw that the line was 48 inch, for kind of everything you see there in orange, reach 55, 56, and then 57, which you can't see. between those manholes 84, 33. It's possible, you'd have to look into it, hydraulics and all that, to actually do a slip line, a 48-inch line, inside that existing, and maybe do that with a kind of a limited shutdown, or maybe even no shutdown, like a live slip line. So, but James is totally right. We got to look into all those types of things.
Gotcha. Hey, another question, you mentioned there was a lot of flow, even at the quote low flow time of night. Is that indication of another problem, or is that about the amount of flow that should be there at night?
We're double checking into that. I mean, one of the questions that I'm going to be looking at is, and I don't know if it's in the report, is, we saw cracks, but we didn't see a lot of I&I coming in. And if we did, I didn't see it, at least in the report. Ari, can you kind of verify that? Or
Yeah, there were, there were, I think, 2 or 3 isolated locations where we had I&I, but it didn't look like a lot, although we were doing the work in June, so, but no, I didn't see evidence of a ton. And, the other thing that popped out at me is, from a capacity standpoint, we were seeing the high water marks at, roughly the 3 and 9 position. It didn't look like you were, high water was way up at the, near approaching the 12 o'clock. So.
Oh, that's good news.
And our total flows are going up, but we have growth. But they're not really far beyond what our master plan predicts. So there's nothing that, at least from a staff standpoint, raises a flag at this point.
Oh, good. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Director Hernandez?
No, it's good to know that flow amount, because, since I've been on the board, we've been talking about, a new parallel line on this outfall, and I'm hoping we can defer that for another 10 years.
Yeah. Well, the good news and bad news of that is, this is the west outfall where the 3 agencies own it. The east outfall our outfall is actually almost 9 miles long. This was only 3.3 miles of it. Our other siphon, which is actually in the budget to start planning on, is almost 12,000 foot long siphon. So, and that has a capacity issue, and that is 100% just Vallecitos. So what we were really worried about, and I am extremely, extremely happy, was knowing that this pipe is clay and metallic in a lot of ways. I was afraid to see no roof on the pipe, nothing but a dirt roof. Also knowing that Carlsbad has had a major failure on their system in the last 5-6 years. Buena's had a major failure on their system in the last 5-6 years. Both their systems, at least age-wise, are not much older than our system. I really had this nightmare that Vallecitos is next. So that's one of the reasons why this project moved forward. And I could not be happier with the results. We have work to do, but we're not calling out, the emergency trucks right now, which is, knock on wood. Good news. We could plan the work at least.
Yeah. Can you imagine a failure on that I-5 section? Oh, Lord have mercy.
Oh,
Don't even say it.
no,
Don't talk about that.
Yes.
take it off of that screen.
So unless there's any other questions for the directors, we can move on to on the agenda.
No, I don't think so.
No, I'm good.
And thanks again, Susan and Ari. That was a fantastic presentation.
Very
You're
good.
welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ari.
You're welcome to stay on. This is a public meeting. By all means, you're not required to. So, okay. The next item, if the directors are ready, I believe it's a Metal Arc Reclamation Facility odor scrubber #1 replacement update. Actually, the next 3 items are going to be handled by a capital group. And Ryan, unless I'm wrong, I think Lito Santos, our engineer, is going to be handling those.
That's right.
So take it away, Lito, when you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you, AGM James Campbell, Director Elitharp, Director Hernandez. Afternoon. I'll be going through 3 of our projects that are either currently in construction or being bid out and or being advertised. The first project is at our treatment plant. It is the Metal Arc Reclamation Facility odor scrubber #1 replacement. The old odor scrubber is about 10 years old. Currently with the Air Pollution Control District's air pollution requirements, it's harder and harder to pass. The old odor scrubber is the picture on the left over here, lower left. It's more and more difficult to pass APCD standards. And so now we're going to be replacing it with a new odor scrubber. The old odor scrubber was a media carbon-based filter. The new one will be a biological selector that will require less maintenance. Planning and design was completed May 2021. Construction began September. We had a couple of delays with COVID. We're hoping the project will be accepted November 3rd in a couple of weeks with a projected surplus of $30,000. The next project was just completed in design in September. It's up in San Elijo Hills. It's the Sage Canyon water tank refurbishment. The water tank is about 3.7 million gallons and it was built originally in 2001. The tank is going to require a full sandblast and recoat in the interior and exterior. With the design reports, we found that the rafters will need full replacement due to extensive corrosion. The project budget is 1.155 million. The current engineered estimate that we received in August is $1.075 million. We hope to bring this to the board for contract award in the first meeting in December. We'll probably begin advertisement within the next week or 2 weeks. The next project is our Palos Vista pump station. This is the Palos Vista pump station is off El Norte up in providing water up in the Emerald Heights area, kind of north of our district. The current motor starters were installed about 25 years ago. These are 300 horsepower pumps, and when the switch turns on, it just violently kind of starts the motors right away. With the motor upgrades, we're going to be installing a soft starter, which will allow the motors to kind of rev up, kind of similar to your cars in the morning. This project is currently being advertised for electrical contractors. We're hoping to do the pre-bid next week, next Tuesday. That's scheduled out. Bid opening will be November 4th. We'll take it to the board about mid-November, second meeting in November. So that's about it for our project updates for now. We'll have a couple more projects up for advertisement and construction later this year. Directors, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question on the tank recoatings on the exterior. Do we paint them all the same color, or do we kind of look at the surroundings and adapt?
We actually, Director Althar, we actually standardize our colors for all the tanks. So this way it's the same sheen, the same finish, the same color for any type of graffiti repair. We understand that it chalks and fades, but this way we don't have to stock multiple different colors. We do get community input, but we really push them to the same color for that same reason. And so far, knock on wood, we haven't gotten any pushback on that. Although there probably will be a day that a community prefers a certain color, and then we'll have to cross that bridge at that time.
Yeah, I've been through that. Okay, thanks. Director Hernandez, any questions?
No, that was very thorough. Thank you very much.
Just one more question on the electrical side. Is everything, all our pumps are 483 phase, I take it?
Yeah, they sure are.
Yeah,
we don't have any 2170. We don't have any mid voltage.
4160 or anything?
Yeah, no 4160s here.
Yeah, we had to deal with that. We had some installed that were 4160. You get a big voltage discount on the bill, but on the other hand, you've got increased electrical hazard with a higher medium voltage. So it's kind of one thing to weigh against the other.
Yeah, at my previous district, we had 4160, and I saw the electrician just get next to the breaker and hold a light bulb next to the breaker and made it glow. I don't know if it was a fault in the system or just a parlor trick, but it kept me away from it.
Yeah,
So,
the safety gear required is a lot more onerous than 480. It's pretty extensive.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
the,
you.
The capital group actually is going to be very busy. The board's going to see several projects going out to bid and award. We'll bring as much as we can in brief updates like this to the committee, but with timing, there's going to be some items that slip by committee just because of schedule and go straight to the board. But I think, and Ryan, correct me wrong, we have 6 or 7 projects basically in some format of either starting construction or going out to bid here in the next 2 months.
That's right. Yeah, we are in the process of releasing projects out to bid now through the end of the calendar year, through November at least, and it's at least 6 projects.
And then, so we'll be going heavy into the construction mode for next calendar year for the capital group. And they still have a couple large projects in design like Montiel pump station and siphon replacement, and the Tres Amigos pipeline come to mind as far as fairly significant linear projects. So it's going to be a busy year for those guys.
Yeah, would it be possible to get maybe a tour of some active sites
Yeah,
for myself?
absolutely.
And yeah, that'd be great for myself and Director Hernandez.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We'll actually, that's probably a good idea. I'll work with the general manager Prum to kind of set that up and offer to the committee and any other board members, obviously, also as especially as we hit phases of something that's really interesting to watch. I think we have 3 projects going at Meadowlark at some point. They're all going to overlap. So maybe that may be the first opportunity when we start working on the new aeration basins. But we'll go ahead and I'll work with Ryan to get an update to General Manager Prum. And then from there, the directors could kind of pick and choose depending on timing.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, with that, I think if you could give me control of the screen back, if the committee members are ready, I think we're down to our final item.
All right.
Okay, let me cue it up. I should have had it queued up before. All right, this item I'll be taking, and it's the basically the Coronado Hills area. We've experienced a lot of main breaks within the Coronado Hills area. And basically, it's all these areas that I have color coded. And I'll go over the color codings. Actually, I'll go over it now. If you can see from the legend, this is color coding at the meter. So within our GIS, we know the elevation, obviously, of the meter. We know the elevation of the tank system. So this is based on the tank being empty. So your best case scenario, these are the pressures. If you see green, it's let me zoom up on this. I don't know how large everybody's screens are. So it's 0 to 150 PSI, what we consider a normal safe operating range. If you see yellow, it's 150 to 200. So that's getting into higher pressures. At 175, we provide a district pressure regulating valve upstream of the meter to protect our meter. Your house, the homes still actually have their own pressure regulator to protect the plumbing inside the house.
James,
And then-
James,
Yes.
that district installed regulator, is that set to 150?
No, it's usually set to like 135 or 125.
Okay, but it's not based on a customer desire. It's based on
No, it's set to protect our meter, and then your home regulator, I think, sets it below 75, if I remember right.
Thank you.
Obviously, orange is at 200 to 250. Then you got 251 to 300. Then you got 301 to 350. It's really plus, but 301 to 350. So we have extremely high pressures in Coronado Hills. If you're familiar with the area, let me zoom out so you kind of get a picture of what we're looking at. So the flags that you see are main breaks. And sure enough, the main breaks seem to coincide, not everywhere, but primarily in the higher pressure areas. The way Coronado Hills developed over time, it was basically lot by lot. There was no master subdivision that happened, and a lot of it was improved originally under a improvement district. So it was fairly, the water system being over the improvement district was a homeowner effort from a group of homeowners back from the 1970s. And then after that, it was just developed lot by lot. So they have high pressure plug valves that don't work, that have been replaced with high pressure gate valves. But working with operations, we're actually kind of looking at, does it make sense to install maybe one for sure, possibly two pressure reducing valves in Coronado Hills? It's two facilities. Each facility is worth probably over $150,000 and requires regular maintenance. So it's something that we have to take a look at. Now, one area, and I'm going to go to, this is the same exact map, but it's just the ortho version of it, the aerial. I'll zoom up quite a bit here. One area we're definitely looking at as a possibility that may be worth is concentrating, where we have majority of our main breaks along here. So there's an opportunity in this area to maybe put a pressure reducing valve. It's currently not budgeted for, so this would be something that we'd be budgeting for probably next fiscal year to design and install in this area, which would reduce the pressure. We will still have some, and I'll zoom out a little bit. I'm sorry if I'm making you guys dizzy. We'll still have some areas that will still need some type of pressure regulating valve to protect the meter in the homes, because the difference in elevation, we're going from this orange, which is that 201 to 250, all the way down to up to 350 PSI going down the hill. So because of the elevation, we don't want to put in several pressure reducing valves and bypasses. So we'll end up trying to, hydraulically look at designing. This is one area. The second area that is being considered, which really may not be worth it, is this one street coming down here. We've had one break, but you can see you're basically going down the hill. If you put a PRV here, you could probably get all these to green and then be into yellow, maybe orange for the bottom hill. But then it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 meters that you're talking about. For a fairly expensive facility, we could probably replace a lot of pressure regulating valves for that amount of money, as far as the district owned pressure regulating valves. So this is just an informational item to get to talk to the committee about. This is something that right now staff is looking at probably budgeting for next fiscal year in design. There is a little bit of interest from in discussion with Ed, ops, actually maybe going to the board and asking for a budget to start the design this year. But from a bandwidth with our capital group, we really don't have a lot of additional man hours to put towards another project. So pushing it to next fiscal year will probably be the priority. In the meantime, we have had a lot of breaks. These breaks do span over, it's not all this year, over, the last 15, 20 years, or actually more like 10 to 15 years. And we will expect more breaks in this area, but we feel that putting a pressure regulating valve or reducing valve, especially here, and probably doing more routine maintenance here to ensure that the district pressure regulating valves are replaced, on a normal cycle, maybe 7 to 10 years, would be prudent. This is up to committee discussion to get thoughts in the committee. Right now, it's not an action, it's just an information item. But that being said, we're also looking at other areas of the district, and you can see some of the break maps showing up, and then looking at not only pressure, but Susan's group's also looking at soil corrosivity. So every time we have a break, we get a bag sample, and we do a corrosivity test on the soil. And we're going to start overlaying these different aspects into our GIS and use it as far as some of our decision processes in the asset management group. With that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Director Hernandez, any questions?
Is any of this expenditure going to be borne by the homeowners up there?
No, this would be a district initiated item to help, because as if we save maybe 2 to 3 breaks, this facility pays for itself.
Yeah.
Essentially. And so if you look at here with the amount of breaks and the amount of homes, it makes sense. Here, you can make an argument that it may not make sense from a pure cost benefit. standpoint.
Do we
Well,
have
there's a-
any homeowners complaining that their pressure regulators have been damaged because of our pressure?
Not at this point, but every time you have a break, we usually get a claim or two because they feel that if there was debris that was put in the line, which usually water's coming out, not going in because of the high pressure,
Yeah,
that their regulators get clogged or they get plumbing. We will, however, have to do a public outreach because these homeowners are used to really high pressure. And
yeah,
their systems are set up for it. So now they're going to get to a normalized pressure, which would be better for them, better for their internal plumbing. But people get used to kind of what they're used to. And any
Yeah.
change is any change is a reason to complain. So we will, if we move forward as part of the effort, probably spend more time than usual doing outreach to these people.
yeah. This is a pretty vocal group up there. When we have our energy increases because of their location,
Yeah,
we've
the
got a
pump
number of
zone.
people showing up.
Yep. Yeah, we are well aware of the community and the vocal tendencies of the community. So definitely, but this is really, if we move forward with this, it's a major facility that'll be built. We're going to disturb the road because if you know anything about the roads up there, there's this is going to be a vault in the road, and we're going to basically close down the road and have to, basically do a slow construction process where we put plates down to let people go in and out. And with a slower construction window, or do it in the middle of the night. So it's going to be a disturbance, but when it's done, it's going to give them a more reliable, better system. At least that's the idea. But from a pure district standpoint, dealing with the breaks with a high pressure line, it's a lot more dangerous for our staff to shut down that line, to isolate it. It's a lot more, and the damage that it does to the road is significant.
Yeah.
And the costs associated with it.
Yeah, I guess part of the financial would be if you were able to replace a lot of those district installed regulators.
Yeah. Those district installed regulators are just upstream of the meter, so they don't affect the pipeline breaks at all. So you wouldn't
Right,
save anything.
but if you lowered the pressure, you wouldn't need them probably in a lot of places, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I'm sorry, I misunderstood where you're going with it. Yes, if
Yeah.
the idea is if we get this mainly to green, all this orange turns to green, and these browns probably turn to yellow, and then obviously maybe even yellow all the way down here, and then obviously the reds maybe turn to brown. We'd have really very few regulators. We'd have to put them in more on the oranges and the browns, but all the yellows pretty much, and the greens, we're hoping to get rid of those regulators.
Right. All right. Thank you. It sounds like a good project.
Yeah, thank you. We're hoping, like I said, we'll work with ops right now. The plan is the budget for next fiscal year. I know Ed wants to do it sooner, but I don't think we have the bandwidth for it. But it's definitely a project that the board will see, whether it's coming to the board as a special request or within the next fiscal year budget process.
Right.
What kind of budget are we talking about there, James?
It's about $150,000 facility, so it'll be in the low twos probably. So
Okay.
that's one of the considerations.
Yep, very good. Thank you.
So with that, I think that's all we had for agendized for the item. And I know there's other business. So Director Eltharp, the meeting's back to you.
Okay, I'll ask, is there any other business? I have none. Director Hernandez.
No, but while we were going through the whole board package today, trying to remember the catch-22 that we were in when we did a committee meeting of the whole, where we went through all of this during the committee meeting of the whole, and then we took that information to the board and then had a short board meeting. That's when we had the concern about transparency. And so I'm just trying to resolve in my brain whether having a committee meeting of the whole, going through all of this with everybody, and then spending almost the same amount of time at a board meeting, if we're not, how much time are we going to be involved? So I'm just trying to keep that in my head.
Yeah, I think that's a discussion that we're going to need to have as a board. And
Yeah,
I think part of the issue is weighing having committees of the whole versus, the current situation where we have 2 board meetings a month. Possibly we could go to 1 board meeting if we had committees of the whole. So I think that's something that we need to weigh also.
yeah, okay. All right, no, that was all I had to add.
All right, I think we're done then.
Okay. Thank you all. That was a great presentation on all items.
Yep, very informative. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll see you at the next committee or board meeting. Actually, no, I'll see you guys tomorrow. So sorry, Wednesday. I'll see you guys Wednesday. So,
Okay,
thank you. I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
stop broadcasting now.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
I know.